All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is William Gheen. William is with the Americans for Legal Immigration. And before I bring him up, let me just give you a little bit from his latest press release. A sense of shock and dismay is sweeping across America today as citizens learn of President Obama's authoritarian decree creating a form of amnesty for illegal aliens. This act defies existing federal law, the U.S. Constitution, the will of Congress, and the will of the American public. Obama has just created a constitutional crisis by nullifying the U.S. Constitution, existing federal immigration laws, the votes of Congress, and every vote cast and email sent by Americans who have defeated this amnesty legislation 8 times in the past 6 years. Did I get you accurately there, William Gheen?
That's true.
Yeah, I talk to people, supposed constitutional scholars. They say he can't do that. He can't do that. Well, it's called totalitarianism, it's called dictatorship, it's called communism, it's called fascism, whatever you want to call it. I think Obama's got it, don't you?
Well, he's done it, and just to say, what are you going to do about it? And the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? I mean, we're going to lobby Congress and ask them to impeach him or rescind it, but the truth of the matter is that the Democrats still control the Senate, so anything that, we've got several blocks to the true blue Republicans. There's about 150 Republicans or so in the U.S. House that are worth a darn on anything. And first they have to get past John Boehner, who's a globalist who supports the guest worker program type of amnesty for illegal immigrants, and that tells us all that we need to know about Boehner. But even if they were to have some type of political revolution inside the U.S. House to be able to get the HALT Act, for instance, legislation passed the globalist speaker, and voted into a law by the House, it would go to the Senate where the Democrats still control. But is the Democrat control of the Senate legitimate, considering the fact we're receiving more and more information that seems to indicate that tens of thousands of illegal immigrants came out to vote, predominantly for Democratic candidates, of course, in states like Nevada, Colorado, Washington State, California. There's a good chance that since we have definitely, and we have clearly experienced massive, felonious, illegal immigrant voting behavior in the last 2010 elections, the Democratic control of the U.S. Senate itself may be illegitimate. So, if it was impeachment or legislation to stop the president, it's not going to go through there. Is somebody going to sue? And it takes, 5 years to get to the Supreme Court, and after that, the illegals that Obama had allowed stay would already be so implanted in American politics that it'd be fait accompli. The question becomes, what do we do? And we're going to keep up the political and peaceful fight here in Americans for Legal Immigration PAC and do everything that we can, but we're dealing with a dictator here, and we're dealing with a situation where the Obama administration has deprived the American public, the entire American public, of a voice, and a lot of people don't realize that yet.
I've said I'm actually of the opinion that Obama is perfect. He's the perfect New World Order leader. They've already put him in the Security Council. He's part Jew, he's part Muslim, he's part Christian, he's half black, he's half white. I mean, isn't he the perfect New World Order leader, and haven't they put him in that position purposely? Didn't the Democratic Congress for the last 8 years have been trying to get that stipulation in the Constitution requiring natural-born citizens put aside? Maybe they were planning on Obama, maybe they were planning on Schwarzenegger, but what about it?
Well, I think the most important thing, of regulation to the Congress is that the U.S. Congress, some elements of the U.S. Congress, Democrats were mostly working with Rhino Republicans like McCain and Graham and others, have tried to pass an amnesty about 8 times in the last 6 or 7 years. And each time the Congress and the United States public has defeated that legislation. We spoke out, we lobbied, we faxed, we emailed, we protested, we attended events, we supported campaigns and elections. We did everything that a civic-minded American is supposed to do, and we defeated the bills several times, and then Obama comes in and just does it. Just does it. And so what do you tell people?
Yeah, stroking a pen, pretty cool, you know. Change everything. Well, I promise you change. Here it is. Here it is. Here, well, welcome to a communist country. And,
yeah, well, I mean,
what
a lot of people out there on the left that are clapping, saying, "Oh yeah, I wanted to see this. Haha, stupid, silly, white bread Republicans. Now you're going to have the illegal immigrants and the new leaders arising. Haha, here it is. Haha, here it is." They support the dictatorship because they see it as advantageous to themselves. But wait till the globalists do something they don't like. Something like, you know, a heavy restriction on free speech. Or something like that. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? I mean, you know, what if you know, once they supported a dictator, supported an authoritarian regime taking actions that they do approve of, what are they going to do when the same authoritarian regime takes actions that they don't approve of? I'll tell you what they're going to do. Nothing. They're not going to do anything because they stood there and they supported this type of stuff when they saw it, you know, on their behalf. They need to realize, because, you know, the left's all stirred up about Ron Paul and Michelle Bachmann and others. I don't support a Republican, a Democrat. I don't support anyone becoming a dictator in the United States of America. A lot of people think I'm just name-calling Obama. A lot of the reaction to our official announcement that from this point forward we will refer to President Obama interchangeably with Dictator Obama, or mostly just with Dictator Obama, and drop the President, because, you know, when one starts acting as a dictator of the United States of America, a lot of us believe that delegitimizes the office of presidency. I know a lot of people out there saying, well, he's an illegal immigrant anyway, and his birth certificate and his Social Security card. You know, I understand all that. Regardless of what you believe about his different credentials or whatever, the man just took actions of a dictatorial fashion against the people of the United States of America. Does that not in itself delegitimize his right to be called or referred to as president? I don't think it does. And while a lot of people are going to initially say, oh, William Gheen is calling him a dictator, he's name-calling, what a brute, I think I'm just on the front end of this as usual, Clay. I mean, you know, I'm just one of the first people to really start just laying it out, saying this man's a dictator. He's working for a cabal of globalists, and he is one of many lines of dictators that are coming for this country, and people are going to suffer greatly.
We basically, William, I mean, I've been reporting on the whole takeover of the New World Order since our president announced it. I covered, you know, our third president in that from that line, the Bush-Clinton crime faction. Yeah, I reported on them. I reported about George Bush's drug running into this country, and when he said New World Order, you know, a chill went up my spine. I mean, that's exactly what Hitler tried to put together. That's exactly what the Cold War was about. To merge all these countries into one world government of the banksters, by the banksters, and for the banksters, and that's why they don't want you to read Protocols of the Elders of Zion, because they lay out the whole plan for it. Doesn't matter who wrote it, you know, whether they were Jewish or Tsar secret police or both. It don't matter. They're dead now.
Well, you know, I don't think we need to get into stuff like that, Clay. I mean, I respect you as a host who want to get into stuff like that, but, you know, my realm here is strictly the political, you know, the mainstream political stuff here.
All right, sir. I want.
We don't. And let me explain, because we don't need to. There's no need for cryptic documents or things that would be much more contentious or debatable. Well, let's look at the facts here. Okay, the facts are, we know that we have over 80+%, 70 to 80+% of Americans that oppose any form of amnesty for illegal immigrants, and want that border secured, and want employers fined, and don't want illegal immigrants receiving welfare. And that is a mainstream, core, straight-on issue right there, Clay.
Yes, sir,
okay?
It is. And we will stick with that. We will stick with that.
We're looking at, like, even a majority of Democrats are with us on that, and a majority of blacks, and a majority of Hispanics, and a majority of whites. And right there, if you could unify everybody like that, then you can win this thing. But the globalists, what they do is they come in and they've got plants and they've got their smear groups like Right Ring Watch, Southern Poverty Law Center, Anti-Defamation League, and 100 other ones that just recently attacked me trying to take something I said out of context to claim that I was calling for the violent overthrow of the presidency, which I did not do. And what they come in and do is try to wedge in between all those different groups to make sure that the plurality of whites, blacks, and Hispanics, that a plurality of Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated that all agree on immigration issues do not unify. So when you mention the Protocols of Zion or some of these other, more niche, type things, you risk a little bit of the biases that's there.
Well, now let me stop you right there. I just had breakfast with the sheriff of Cochise County, and he is concerned about this as much as you and I are. And he wanted me to bring a motorcycle run down to Cochise County, down to Tombstone on Veterans Day, 11/11/11. And I agreed to do that and research it, and I've been doing my due diligence on it. And as soon as I mentioned to something about illegal aliens to the bikers around town, stop off at the biker bar, hey, I'm thinking about doing a run, talking about illegal aliens. The response was negative every time. Well, they're just people. Well, yeah, well, that sheriff, he and Arpaio are racist because they want to pick up the Mexicans. So they've been calling me a racist and anti-Semite because I mentioned, Israel's got nuclear weapons. And they're doing the same thing to you. They're going after people like you right now. They're trying to stay in the mainstream, trying to do the right thing, trying to support the Constitution. They've gone after the Oath Keepers. They've gone after all of these people while the governments are going corrupt, while they're killing American veterans.
They've gone after the entire Tea Party, and their assault on the Tea Party has greatly the Tea Party popularity levels amongst the general public have fallen greatly. I mean, and anybody out there that's been participating in the Tea Party or supported the Tea Party has felt it. They felt it on Facebook. They felt it online. Tens of millions of Americans being demonized. A lot of it, and this is the type that they'll take out of context, or want to take out of context, is that a lot of the animosity is, in my opinion, anti-white or discriminatory towards whites or antagonistic towards whites or something like that. I mean, clearly there's some type of racial animus coming at white folks in America from part of this attack. I have taken exception to the Department of Homeland Security releasing videos where all of the, or 95% of the suspected domestic terrorists are white people, and 95+% of the people calling the cops to report to suspected terrorists are minorities and women, and that was taken out of context to claim that I was construing that, something defending white America. No, what I took issue was that the terrorists portrayed in the films are not ethnically or religiously or demographically similar to the 200+ terrorists that have been charged in the last couple of years in the United States of America. That if they were going to have suspected domestic terrorists, that they should have at least had a good ethnic blend of white, black, and Latino domestic terrorists and Muslim domestic terrorists mixed with white, black, and Latino people calling the authorities, but that's not what they did. And so my actual concerns about inequality, my actual concerns about racism are being taken and tried to be interpreted 180 degrees the other way. And so back to the mention of the side issues there of different things dealing with older concerns about theories about we don't need to have theories about things like that. We have on the surface right here in front of us a president that has defied the U.S. Constitution, exceeded his authority, defied the U.S. Congress, defied the existing federal law, defied the will of 60, 70, 80, whatever % of a supermajority of Americans. we don't need to delve into the more risky stuff of it, in the sense that, you know, that right there should be enough for people to understand what is happening here in the United States of America. And the only thing that people do when they, you know, go too far off into some of these older, you know, some of these older theories and stuff that have been around for a long time have been so hammered on by the left that it just really only serves their opinion to take that and then inject it into a more mainstream political conversation about what are we going to do from a legislative perspective, what are we going to do from a campaign perspective, what are we going to do from an actual practical political strategy to stop this. Because if the president's move on behalf of the globalists continue and it works, then millions of illegal immigrants are going to become voters, and at that point, it's game over.
Look,
I mean, they're already voting. I'm just saying that we won't be able to. They're already voting illegally, by the tens of thousands at least. That illegal voting will become legal voting, and the tens of millions, and you know, we'll just be submerged under layer after layer of how many of, you know, new tenants.
William, they have bragged about that. La Raza has bragged about that. California teachers and legislators have bragged that they are flooding the voting booths. They're taking over. They're putting their own people in. And you old folks, it's just time for you to die. That's direct quotes from legislators, from teachers that are teaching in our universities here. Now, the sheriff that I've talked to, I talked about doing this run, but I propose doing it for the veterans because I think one of the only answers that we've got, and I want to get your input on Obama's new executive order. I have said that anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people, in order, almost in order. And that's the farmers first, the intelligentsia next, anyone smart enough to know what they're doing, and three, which is happening with you right now. They're attacking you and Alipac and me. But Obama has issued executive order 13575. And by the way, the third class of people they go after are the veterans and law enforcement that remain loyal to the old regime. What seems to be happening here, because I study history, I see the same thing happening in the United States. It happened in Russia when communism was installed, and they started putting people in gulags. Now, Executive Order 13575 establishes a White House Rural Council, and Obama says on June 9, 2011, that 16% of the American population lives in rural counties. Strong, sustainable rural communities are essential to winning the freedom and ensuring American competitiveness in the years ahead. These communities supply our food, fiber, and energy, safeguard our natural resources, and are essential in the development of science and innovation. Though rural, and I agree with him up until that point in this executive order. The rest of the executive order is designed to enhance the federal government's efforts to address the needs of a rural America. This order establishes a council to better coordinate the federal programs, maximize the impact of federal investment. In other words, Agenda 21, fusion centers, federal control, and the expansion of criminal activities connected to put a garden in your backyard, much less. I mean, this is an attack on the farmers all over again, I think. What's your opinion, sir? Isn't this part of your strategy? I mean, the ranchers have told me, the farmers and ranchers out there that I've talked to, said their biggest problem is they can't get any help without hiring the illegals, because the American teenagers don't want to go back on the farm after they've seen Hollywood.
Well, I think that we have a lot of different legal immigration programs and visas that are supposed to be temporary. You know, anytime you hear people, of course, American teens don't want to work on the farms like for $2 an hour or something silly. I mean, if you're from the first world, if you're from the American standard of living, you can't function. You can't really make ends meet. You can go out there and work like a slave and you may get nowhere, not be able to accomplish going to college or buying a car or anything like that. If you're from a third world environment where U.S. dollars mean a lot more and you don't have hardly anything by comparison, you're more likely to want to work that. We've had people come in and do that work and then leave in orderly fashion for decades, and we've been able to do it without 12 million illegal immigrants flooding the country. Only 6% of the, and I think this is a national study, I wish I could quote it precisely, but only, to most people's surprise, only about 6% of the illegal immigrants that are working in America are working in agriculture. So they're much more likely, 90+% are working in other fields outside of agriculture. And those are other jobs that are being taken from Americans, like construction. Teenagers would work construction, roofing, landscaping. Teenagers would work landscaping and roofing. Food industries, McDonald's. Apparently, in my home state of North Carolina, you'll go into lots of McDonald's, and they just don't seem to be able to hire a black or a white person at all. The whole place is just, 100% Hispanic, and questioning whether the hires are legal, and those are jobs. The teenage unemployment rate is just appalling. And so, but from my perspective on what we're seeing here, the people responsible for illegal immigration and hyper illegal immigration are using foreign labor of all sorts of different styles and calibers to systematically displace, and replace American citizens in our jobs. In colleges, for instance, a new study came out just the other day that Hispanic enrollment in colleges was up 24%. Now, I don't see the rise of Hispanic enrollment in colleges as a necessary positive or negative thing, but since we know that many colleges in our largest states, California, Texas, they're not only putting illegal immigrants into college, but they're helping them pay for it with taxpayer subsidies and in-state tuition and a host of other types of financial aid. The article was just going wild about how Hispanic enrollment has increased in our colleges, like by around 300,000 Hispanics just the last year or two, whereas black enrollment is down slightly, and white enrollment in said colleges is down around 300,000. Well, let's think about that. There hasn't been a big rash of new colleges being built. While colleges add seats and whatnot, I'm pretty sure that they're not adding 300,000 seats a year. So we got a zero-sum game there, where the number of college seats are limited, and Hispanics are getting more college opportunities than ever before in America, and apparently white Americans and black Americans are getting less college opportunities than ever before. This pattern, to me, from what I'm seeing, in the middle of one of in the middle of the largest archive of information on the topic, in the middle of the largest flow of information on the topic of illegal immigration, this pattern is absolutely consistent with what I call displace and replace. And they're doing it in jobs, they're doing it in neighborhoods, they're doing it in homes, they're doing it in interpersonal relationships. Some of the left got upset, I said something about illegal immigrants stole my life. Listen, this phone rings day and night with the victims of illegal immigration. And some of the victims lost their spouse to an illegal immigrant. That, her spouse was in the 40s and ran off with a 20-something-year-old gardener. Illegal immigrant, it's happening. The end result is that the indigenous or American population, or predominantly Anglo-descendancy population of the United States of America, which has been governing the country for over 200 years and responsible for most of the major strategic and scientific developments from the United States of America, is being put in a position where being displaced and replaced, and it's happening intentionally, similar to the evidence that's come out of England, where it was discovered for a fact that the Labour Party, the equivalent of Democrats and leftists, didn't like the political views or voting behaviors of the people that were in the country, so they started flooding the country with immigrants, a flood of immigrants that had a different character to them, political character. And at the same time, I guess probably through non-enforcement of the existing England's security laws, a wave of illegal immigrants, similar here to the United States. In the end, you end up removing the main group of people that have ever stood up to the bankers and the global corporate elite, the aristocracies, the kings and the monarchs. The only group of people to successfully in human history set up functioning long-term republics and such are being thrown out of power in the United States and replaced in our own homes. It's almost like a type of warfare where you don't have tanks and bombs going off, which I guess is a blessing in some sorts. But
you know, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting. Colonel John Brinkerhoff was standing up briefing law enforcement after FEMA had been rolled into Homeland Security, and his statement is, in a case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, a terrorist attack, an earthquake on New Madrid fault, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. He's asked if he's talking about National Guard. He says no. And he talks about this is a new form of warfare, and the enemy is weak. The enemy is weak, meaning they don't have tanks and they don't have jets and they don't have helicopters, and so they're going to use different tactics, and they have to use different tactics. We are going to have to, according to Brinkerhoff, use different tactics because the enemy's weak. I think he's talking about the American people, about the white people. And, you know, I mean, somebody, if a Mexican's standing over there and saying it's time for you old white folks to die, and he's in some kind of position of power, you have to believe that we are in a war here. And it doesn't, I mean, this is not a racist thing. If I lived in Mexico and I couldn't get a job, I'd probably be walking up here with them to try to survive or feed my family. Mm-hmm. But and I have tried to hire an illegal from Mexico through the U.S. government. I couldn't do it, William. I couldn't do it. They would not let me. There was no legal way I could get an employee that worked for my friend's company for years. I couldn't do it. He had to come here illegally. So,
well, the other thing is, when you look at every vital sign of this country, health and obesity, you know, we can't even make good rock and roll anymore. I go around the country, Clay. It's sort of a personal, but I go around the country, traveling, and I occasionally chill out and talk to people about music, what type of music you like, what type of music I like, what we grew up on, stuff like that. I can't find anybody that can tell me the name of one American band. I said American. I didn't say white. I said American. It could be Latino, black, whatever, rock band though, or an American rock genre band that has come to prominence since the year 2000. Anybody can tell me it's going to go anywhere near the popularity of the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, Bob Dylan. You know, we could just go on and on with all the different names that are etched in the world's consciousness of music coming out of England and America. Aside from a great group called Muse, you know, nobody can tell me any artist, rock and roll artist. Rock and roll's dead. It's dead. We're not even producing that anymore. And they can't produce it in China, and they can't produce it in Mexico, so it hasn't been moved there. So it's just dead. And one of the common denominators here, you know, of the specific attack seems to be a lot of focus on delineating or ostracizing or defaming white males, which is also the vastly predominant demographic of our troops at war, at a time of war.
And they are being attacked too. I mean, here's some depleted uranium. You know, use it to blow up that tank. It'll kill you in a few years, but
well, even without the depleted uranium.